Good morning, everyone. Let's start with market commentary. Now, what we see here is the daily chart of Nifty. One thing which is very crucial to understand the event today. Okay, so people are now trying to guess how the event would be or what would be the next move of Nifty. The good part is basically to sit down and relax rather than understanding what will be the flow of Nifty. One thing which is pretty much clear from two events that have taken place. Now, two events are bigger than the budget event, and how I'll try to explain that. First thing, the yesterday's dip which took place, and it basically filled the gap which was there in the prior segment, right? So this was the point where the gap was basically been built, and all it did was basically hit the gap, and again a bounce back came into place. Now, one thing is clear that agreed budget, if everything remains intact, there can be one good up move again seen in the budget. Okay, so budget event, apart from the anything which is not been thought about comes into picture, then you can find a discrete fall in Nifty, but you need to understand the fall will be limited. Why? Because 10,700, 10,800, these are the place where the supports have been taken, and the best part is 10,600, even if you go to 10,500 or 400. So all these 100 points are the step at which the supports have been taken and the new rallies have begun from there. Now what happens over here, even if Nifty starts falling down, okay, there are many people on the short side which is being built up throughout this rally. Now how do we understand why it is being built up or the shorts are stuck? Because of the OI, as we explained last time. So OI in this exposure or this expiry was also the same and higher. So that basically means the people who are stuck in this entire rally are still there in the system. Now, if they are there, so assuming that we are short at 10,600 or 700 is our average price, and if a fall comes to those levels, obviously it is my break-even price and I will try to exit the system, right? So the point which I am trying to make, even if Bank Nifty or Nifty falls, right, maybe any reason which is there apart from the long-term tax or fiscal deficit, if those reasons are intact, the fall might be very small and then it will be bought. Now, it is not that the fresh buying is coming along. It's basically at these levels where the shorts are stuck, they are unwinding the position, right? So intermittent support is there for Nifty and Bank Nifty, even if the budget doesn't pan out the way it has to be. Okay, so second point is, even if let's say anything bad news comes out of the budget, the Nifty starts falling down, people will start unwinding their previous positions and pulling out new shorts. When they pull out new shorts, again you might find Nifty going higher, right? So that is where the confusion would be on the budget day. So it is better to sit out, relax, rather than go in and trade and try to anticipate what it will be. Obviously, it will be a volatility move that will take place up and down. But one thing is pretty clear, even if the market pans out downwards, there is a limited downside and then the upswing will come in very fast. Now, two things that I wanted to basically put into mind where people are not trying to focus on. First is the Fed meeting, which has already taken place, right? So first Fed meeting, they have said rates are unchanged. Or you can say at least the rates have not been hiked. And second, oil supply has been the highest. Okay. Now, when I say highest, it basically means highest in the last 30 years. So the amount of inventory which has been seen is highest in last 30 years. That basically shows that oil basically might now stop at the 70 odd levels and might again come down after this stupendous rise which has taken place. So this thing will provide support to our Nifty sentiments if oil starts going down, and then we'll try to see today Asian Paint on OMC's companies how they are performing, because they have corrected a lot, and then you can find a good upside moment the oil, even if it goes from 70 to 65. Agreed, it is not big move, but even if $5 down, market and media will start putting this news everywhere, and then you can basically find a good up move coming into these OMCs and the paint company, right? Or even in the tires, for matter of the fact. Important point to understand, Fed meeting, rates kept unchanged. That basically gives a good leeway to even Indian government or RBI to basically maintain the status quo. That basically means even the RBI can keep now the rates unchanged. Okay, rates unchanged in this Indian segment, okay, basically will help us to understand if the rates are unchanged in the RBI meeting as well. Now, when we go out and see the dates as well, so budget will be done over here. The next week is basically the RBI meeting, and then where the rate hike is not the possibility since the Fed has remained unchanged, RBI might remain unchanged. So this event basically more or less will get priced in. So the two events where I basically see Nifty will basically go in the consolidation phase, but not on the downside. Try to understand this. So people might be expecting Nifty to fall, but now after seeing the Fed results, after seeing the oil supply hitting high, it is pretty much clear to understand, apart from the noise which people are trying to make about the budget, it will be out today, and then the RBI meeting, which will be out then, and then you are approaching towards the Feb expiry of 22nd, right? So predominantly market will start moving sideways, or maybe hitting a high of 11,200 if anything good, or 11,300 if anything amazing comes out of the budget, right? So rest of the thing is same as it was prior as well. And the point which we are trying to understand after the gap which was tested and the pull up which was taken place following the day today, obviously it might come back and test, and then again an up move can start. And we are trying to understand if budget remains the same or decent enough, and the RBI meeting, there is no big event taking place now. So next 2 weeks, it is a matter of the fact more of the consolidation rather than going downwards. Okay, and having a bias on the upward side. Now, what we need to understand basically is on the last week of the expiry. So when we go on the last week of the expiry, then you can find some kind of correction coming in, right? So for the budget and for this event, more or less Nifty is intact or maybe going higher. We basically assume that the fall might come in the last week of Feb, or I can say last week of the expiry. That is basically on 19, 20, 21, 22. So these are the 4 days which will remain crucial for the correction to set in. So Nifty correction, when it is possible, I'm trying to put a date, say let's say last week of expiry. So let's say 19 to 22. Okay, so 19 to 22 can be the 4 days where correction can come in. Now, how much correction? So we can basically look at correction of 11,200 or 11,100 zone can basically come down or correct to roughly around 500 points. So 10,700, or you can say around 10,600 can be on the cards, right? So only in the last week of expiry itself, Nifty can basically can come down to these levels of 10,600. So I am trying to assume there can be a fall of around 500 to 600 points. Okay, and the dates have been basically around this 19th to 22nd of Feb. Now, if this doesn't happen, it gives me more reason to think something else. Something else basically means the second round of correction. So this is one round of correction which we are trying to think on, and the second round of correction, what we are trying to see in Nifty can basically come in the second week of March. So the first agenda of Nifty correction or 600 point correction can come over here. The second Nifty correction we are trying to anticipate around second week of March. So I can say around 5th to 10th of March is where the correction can come in. Now, this is what people do not anticipate or think prior to things which can happen, and that is where you can basically focus yourself from now onwards where the corrections can come and set in. So one is the last week of Feb expiry itself, and second, if you see, I'm trying to say the second week of March or 5th to 10th of March, again you can find these kind of correction, 10,600 or I can say even to 10,500 can be on the cards for Nifty. So 600, 700 points fall is possible in second week of March. Now the question asks, why only second week of March after the expiry of Feb? So let's say the Feb expiry, nothing happens and it remains the same. Okay, so 22nd it remains consolidated in the upper zone, does not correct. I'm trying to say it will happen in the second week of Feb, second week of March, because there is a bigger event which is there. 15th of March is basically again the next Fed meeting, right? So keeping the rates unchanged basically gives them a set target to increase the rates in this particular meeting on 15th of March. So when this information is known, okay, and when it comes closer, and even if the 15th of March, the Fed meeting comes or not, or whether they increase or not, but prior to that, it can set a good set of correction. Now, if you notice, there was something which was very amazing that happened. The Fed meeting was supposed to take place on 30th and 31st. What happened over here? The Dow basically went down 300 points. Right? That basically shows before the event, a correction can set in. And keeping the same thing in mind, I'm saying 15th of March, when the Fed meeting is about to place, prior to that, we can find our correction on the way. Right? So many people are fixated with budget. I think that's not the bigger agenda over here. Try to see beyond the budget. The event will be done and dusted, and people won't talk about it. Right? So try to focus on this event, which is much more bigger in coming Feb expiry or second week of March. So we'll place some option trades to capitalize this particular move of 500, 600 points on the downside. So fine, that's enough for understanding how the Nifty can pan out. So I'm not trying to put levels over here. Just see from the weekly point of view, where are we stabilized. So when I see from weekly point of view, 10,400, as we have discussed prior, becomes a good set target on the downside, and second is 10,600. So these are the levels where Nifty can come and retest itself. So let's say it goes sideways and then it will retest to this level of 10,600 or maybe to levels of 10,450 kind of stuff, right? So even on the weekly chart, obviously the rally was smooth and fast. It can go sideways, can bring a little bit of correction in the last week of Feb or second week of March, and then it can again start a new trajectory, right? So that's for the Nifty. Now let's go and see the Bank Nifty as well. The same case is for Bank Nifty also. Now, when I see on the Bank Nifty side, obviously there will be some mild uncertainty when the RBI meeting sets in, but something which is amazing on the Bank Nifty as well, after the huge uptick which has taken place in Bank Nifty. Now, if you see over here, again, there is a huge gap which has been filled, okay, which has been tested twice, this base of 26,450, or I can say this entire gap of 26,250 kind of zone. Basically sets in another support level for Bank Nifty. So when I see on daily chart, and even yesterday opening gap down exactly at the point of support, and it pulls it up. So this mark is very important for Bank Nifty. So to reiterate, 27,100 is a huge potential barrier, I can say, for Bank Nifty to go down. So Bank Nifty, if it wants to go down, obviously 27,100 now becomes a huge potential support. Why? Because it opened gap down and it was bullish, okay, and follow-up buying can be seen in Bank Nifty. Obviously, it can come down back over here to test, but ideally, if you want to see a fall in Bank Nifty, it has to cross below 27,100. Otherwise, there is no fall in Bank Nifty. Now, even after it corrects from here, the straight support that we are trying to see is 26,500 or 400 kind of zone. So the fall can only be around 500 to 600, 700 points. Right, so that fall can be capitalized, and the lower band, if you try to see, the huge support is there on 25,800. Right, so that is what is seen on the daily chart, and even if I go out and see on the weekly chart now, the levels still remain the same. So if you see the huge big candle came out from the level of 25,800, so that becomes a huge support zone for us to understand. So it was prior huge resistance, and then it moved out, and it was just zooming out very fast. We need to understand this becomes a huge support level for Bank Nifty. Second, this level does not seem that relevant of the gap which we have seen inside the daily chart. On the weekly, it does not seem to be that relevant. Important point, even on the base that we are trying to think yesterday, which made a bottom over here. So we can now put from the weekly point of view, these two levels are important. So if I remove this, from the weekly point of view, 27,000 becomes a huge support level for Nifty and Bank Nifty. And when this breaches, a huge fall can come in Bank Nifty reaching almost to 26,000 levels. So 1,000 points fall is possible in Bank Nifty any point of time, not today or tomorrow or RBI. It will go sideways, and basically when the correction needs to set in, then beyond this level, straight away 1,000 points can be on the cards, right? So that we need to focus upon once these events pan out. So right now today it's basically more event based of budget, a little bit of volatility. So better to be away from these kind of events. I would say not for today, even for tomorrow. Try to be away, try to think exactly what happens rationally, and then we can get into the trades again from Monday onwards. So that will be the RBI meeting that will be coming up. Can find some little bit of bearish tone for Bank Nifty, but not below 27 odd levels. Right, so 27,000 level becomes a crucial mark for Bank Nifty. Now let's see from oil point of view, as I was trying to say. Let's see the gainer and loser first, and then coming down to these oil or OMC companies. So when I see from gainer and loser, the one thing is L&T, back of the result 3.5% up, and then you see Mahindra now coming in, TCS is there, India Bull Finance and IndusInd Bank. So apart from all the banking side, it is not the banking which is trying to pull up today. It's the construction, infrastructure space, housing space, bank space is what which is trying to put. Even from the bank point of view, there is only IndusInd Bank. Okay, when I see on the loser side, and that is where Dr. Reddy keeps selling, and it is not stopping anywhere. Okay, so not that the results were very poor or something like that. Result missed the estimates, and now there has been a huge fall in Dr. Reddy. Now because of that, Sun and Lupin have also become a little weak. Apart from that, when we see the commodity segments are not performing, so Tata Steel, Vedanta, Coal India, all these commodity pack are down. So from the gainer and the loser, the construction space, infra space, auto space is up, and on the losing side, it's only the commodity which is basically pulling the Nifty down. So what I see now, let's go and see some other stocks which are dependent on oil. So one thing which I see is now Asian Paint. Now when I see Asian Paint from the broader scale, the highs were basically made around this 1200, and then even after the result, we have seen a huge fall in Asian Paint. Obviously, we need to see whether this rally of today is basically a dead cat bounce, or whether it can find new uptrend coming in, right? Or it can basically go below. Now, Asian Paint can only become bearish if it goes below today's low 1125. Okay, so you can find a good buying opportunity in Asian Paint, but predominantly if you see 1125 can become a good support. So if it comes there and it gets support around these range, it is fine. Otherwise, you can find Asian Paint, since it is in the downtrend, it can come down to this 1100 mark, and then we can see a bounce if oil starts going down, even to $60 or so. So at least one uptick has been seen in Asian Paint. Let's go and see the oil marketing companies. So if I go and see BPCL, BPCL after a huge uptick which took place from 470 straight away to 490 odd levels, now see some profit booking or so. But what we see over here, if it comes over here and then again it revives or reverses, this was the prior resistance which was there around this 480 mark. Okay, so BPCL due to the oil support can again touch this 500 odd levels from where the correction was basically set in, right? So one uptick in BPCL is possible on the down move from this 480 kind of levels towards this 500 or so. When I go out and see IOC declared its results were fantastic. Apart from that, it also declared bonus, and on top of that, apart from bonus, it also gave dividend. So when I see IOC pulling out a good up move, basically it adds supports to HPCL and BPCL on the upside as well. Now when I see IOC, the move has been swift and fast, almost to the highest level, and if oil goes down, obviously there is one more move which is possible in IOC as well towards 440, right? But the big move has already taken place, obviously even in BPCL, and this was the result date and the result time when this move took place. Now we need to see whether it can sustain this 415 levels and then it can shoot higher, right? HPCL has been corrected a lot because of the merger, which was the talk. And if you see this is where it opened gap down below the huge support level, and it just went down. Okay, And this is where after the uptick came in from the IOC side, the HV also went up and it almost tested the gap of 409. So where the entire fall started, this is where it basically came back and tested the same high. Right now, is it limited? Yes, the limited upside is done for HPCL because it has reached to a major support which had become resistance for now. So let us see whether it can cross this 406, 409, and then a huge rally is already in place. Right, so HPCL cannot go further up, but there is a scope for IOC and BPCL to rise further higher. So those are the OMC's company. Let's take some of the banks. So if I take IndusInd Bank as being the gainer, let's try to understand how is he trying to project. Now, if we see IndusInd Bank, the result day was this, and this is where the correction set in. After that, again, a gap up opening sideways, and then it started shooting higher. The important point of today's move on IndusInd Bank is it has crossed its prior resistance. So straight away, 1800 is there on the cards for IndusInd, and then we need to look out whether it can sustain those levels or not. So uptick is there for IndusInd Bank. Now this good up move that you see after the result shows that there is good amount of strength in IndusInd Bank. Now whenever Nifty corrects and IndusInd Bank also corrects, it gives us a good support for going or being bullish in IndusInd Bank. Right, so keep that in mind. IndusInd Bank is on a good up move. Let's say from the cement pack, Ultratech. When I go out and see Ultratech, the correction was set in after the result, making new high 4,600, came back down. Now it has found the same support zone, right from where the rally had started. It came back down around these regions. Okay, complete selling took place and buying took place, and then it has basically hold on to these levels of 4283. So that is one good upside that you can see even in Ultratech, because now Asian Paint is performing. Sorry, the L&T is performing, and then you can find a good up move coming in Ultratech as well. Right, so the cement pack can basically come up or move up because of the infrastructure spending for the government or the announcements, and the stage seems to be set for Ultratech. Right, the kind of move has taken place sideways, and then it can basically move from this 4,400 level straight away to 4,550 or 600, and even reaching this, you can now have a target of 4,800 on the cards. Right, so that's for Ultratech. If we go out and see ACC. So when we see ACC, there is no big upside which is seen in ACC. The good point is it has corrected a lot, and then we need to wait whether it can go sideways or basically show some kind of movement. Right. So till then, there is no big upside which can be seen in ACC, or not a good setup compared to Ultratech. So that's predominantly it for the stocks for now. Obviously, things are unknown. And I'm trying to see only the cement pack because of the infrastructure, oil pack because of the OMCs and Asian Paint. Rest of the stocks basically can perform as per the budget agenda. But Bajaj Finance is one of the stock where the results are also pending. Now, one thing which you see, it opened down, gap down, and then the buying took place yesterday. Again, from their levels, it has been rising. The good point, there are two important points for Bajaj Finance being an NBFC. So first point is the results. How does it come out? So today, I think is the numbers of Bajaj Finance. Apart from that, if the budget fiscal deficits remain intact, interest rates and bonds will not go high, and that will also add another feature or feather in the cap for Bajaj Finance. So after being a corrected stock from 1840 odd levels coming down to 1640, obviously it gives a good upside move if exam results or comes out to be decent enough. After crossing 1740, straight away move of 1840 is there on the cards. Right, so results are not going to be bad, and the correction is seen prior to the result itself, forming a double bottom kind of stuff. You can find a good up move coming in Bajaj Finance. Plus, if fiscal deficits are met, and that would be the main agenda for today on the budget, then you can find a new upswing for Bajaj Finance to 1840 or so. So keep that on the card. After a good downtick, even after this 1740 to 1640, basically shows some promising upside only after 1740 is taken out. right? So that's for Bajaj Finance. Let's say one of the auto pack also we can check out. Maruti posted good numbers and it also was gap up after this fall. Gap up had taken place, and this becomes a crucial mark for Maruti. Let's see whether it can suffice this 9,500, can find some support over here or not. But for time being, obviously Maruti had a good run up from these level of 8,500 to 10,000. So some kind of consolidation will set in, right? And then you need to basically understand that long building has been taken place in Maruti for the future side as well. So many people would be long, so they would go sideways more and might find a dip in Maruti, and then you can find a new uptick coming in after the correction setting in Nifty. Right, so Maruti can also be a stock, but it needs to correct like Bajaj Finance. So Maruti has not yet corrected also. When we see one more stock is there, auto, Tata Motors. So Tata Motors have corrected a lot, and if you see over here from the top of 430, 440 kind of zone, complete correction has taken place, right? And after that, what I see, the last part, obviously it is in the support zone per se, around this 390 zone or around this 395 zone, where it is now forming a double bottom kind of stuff. The good point is the large selling took place from the top of 415, and now the selling has basically stopped, overcome by one green good candle. So I need to wait out today to understand what Tata Motor comes out with specifically for Tata Motors in this budget, and then see how the auto is being panned out. So Maruti is zooming up. No, sorry, M&M is zooming up because of the irrigation factor or the agri factor, but Tata Motor is still has some way to go. So the results are pending, but you should keep an eye on Tata Motor because this fall which has taken place, any time you can find Tata Motor zooming to 415. So that can happen in one session itself, and the uptick can happen. So you can keep an eye on Tata Motor as well. Fine. That's it for day. Let's start with the budget commentary, right? And then let's see how the day pans out. Fine. Thank you very much for joining in. We'll connect again tomorrow.